Good evening, everyone. Severe Other Team 9 meteorologist Nathan John joining you for this edition of Date at 8 on Election Day for the Buckeye State. So a bit of a special edition for Nate at 8. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. Coming up, we're talking about some windy conditions for your Wednesday. From there, a little bit of a cool down followed from Wednesday to Thursday, but temperatures climb back up Friday. Another cool down follows into next week. A bit up and down in these temperatures through the weekend. And what arrives early next week is likely the coldest air of the season. So several things to break down for this edition of Nate at 8 as we look ahead going into next week. Again, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. So first off, let's check on radar. Now, earlier this evening, it's worth noting that we did see some showers over our area, and you may have noticed the skies turning darker, looked like it could rain. And the thing was, it was raining. The kicker is the rain did not reach the ground. So yes, you may have noted looking at the sky and say, oh, it looks like it's going to rain, but drying conditions prevailed. And what's happening is that while there's enough moisture aloft in the atmosphere that we're dealing with rain above us, as the rain is falling towards us, before it reaches the ground, it falls into a layer of dry air. And what happens is that rain evaporates before it ever reaches us. This is what we call virga, and this was on display for this evening. So despite some light showers over us, that rain struggling to actually reach the ground, ultimately dry conditions prevailed. And that dry air, just like for this evening, will be a factor again for tomorrow. So we're going to be diving into that, because while we do have a cold front passage tomorrow that would typically be delivering some showers for us likely, the dry air is going to be the limiting factor. So it's going to be a moisture-stricken frontal passage ahead for tomorrow. That being said, the dry air is helping that, lack of showers this evening and lack of cloud cover again tonight, which is good news because we have good viewing conditions for November's full moon known as the Beaver Moon. It's actually the closest and brightest supermoon of the year. So don't miss out on this. Again, good viewing conditions tonight. Peak illumination is into tomorrow morning. So tonight's going to be the best night to get a good view of the full Beaver Moon. Now, again, like I mentioned, the closest and brightest supermoon of the year, and a supermoon is just a full moon that is occurring near the moon's perigee. So with the elliptical orbit around Earth, the point that the moon is closest to the Earth is what's known as the perigee, the moon's perigee. So when a full moon occurs near the moon's perigee, it makes it look a little bit bigger and a little bit brighter. And again, this is the brightest and the closest the moon's going to be for a full moon for this year. So it is a little bit of a special full moon for us again for tonight, and again also known as a super moon. So another good reason to get out and get a good glimpse of that going into tomorrow morning. Joe, good evening. Is there a wind for us tomorrow? I see the eastern part of West Virginia's wind advisory. No, so no wind advisory for us, but looking further towards the east of the northern panhandle, like you mentioned there, Joe, eastern part of West Virginia is just a higher elevations under the wind advisory, but not for us. And that will be a big story for us. No wind advisory, but still in general, some windy conditions. So as we jump into Futurecast tomorrow morning, not as cold of a start. So we're likely not dealing with frost tomorrow morning. It's chilly, but it's not really cold like it has been the past couple of mornings when we waking up to some frost in spots. And lows likely hold more lower 40s into tomorrow morning, thanks to a light southerly wind in place. So despite dealing with the clear, mainly clear skies, that southerly wind, which at least stays light overnight, will keep those temperatures more afloat into tomorrow. And the southerly winds that ramp up, it brings a surge of warmth. And for the first time in 2 weeks, we see high temperatures back in the 60s across the area tomorrow, likely more mid-lower 60s where we're ending up into Wednesday afternoon. We start off with sunshine in the morning, more clouds then spilling into the area in the afternoon. And remember, like we mentioned, the dry air is a factor tomorrow. So while we do see that cold front pass into the afternoon and evening hours, notice due to the fact there's not a lot of moisture with this frontal passage, not a lot of precipitation. Where we will see more precipitation with this is likely further towards our east and towards our northeast. So getting closer towards Youngstown, Erie, PA, to the northwestern portion of Pennsylvania, back into central Pennsylvania, even western Pennsylvania, a little better odds for some showers out of our area. But for us, passing shower or two is possible. But for us, mostly dry conditions will likely prevail. So not a lot of precipitation, but can't rule out that passing shower. There's certainly better odds that we see some rain reach the ground tomorrow with respect to what we had for this evening. That passing shower then tapers off early on Wednesday night. We're left with a decrease in cloud cover and another round of some cold lows into Thursday morning, and we'll be back mid-upper 30s, cold enough to see some patchy frost going into Thursday morning, and some quiet conditions then ahead for us on Thursday. Again, temperatures will start to trend a little bit cooler at that point with a good amount of sunshine overall. Pleasant Thursday, and then temperatures will pick back up into Friday. So the big story tomorrow, obviously temperatures, right, in the 60s, first time across the board that we've dealt with in 2 weeks. So a return of more mild temperatures tomorrow that we haven't seen in a while. And these wind speeds. So like I mentioned, no wind advisory, but still, we can see gusts at least upwards of 40 miles per hour. So it's still going to be quite windy. Winds sustain about 20, gusts up to about 40 miles per hour. We'll see the winds pick up through tomorrow morning. So by midday and afternoon, we're getting late morning into the afternoon hours. That's when the winds are really starting to, pick up, right? And really ramping up at that point. They'll start to diminish then. You'll notice by 8 o'clock, winds already starting to die down just a little, further diminishing then, especially by midnight tomorrow night, and a lighter wind will then return by Thursday morning. That sticks around through Thursday. So winds diminishing tomorrow night into Thursday, but picking up as we get into tomorrow morning. It's really not until, again, about 8 o'clock in the morning and then on that the winds are really starting to ramp up. Not so much early morning. You notice even 4 o'clock in the morning that winds still aren't that breezy, but certainly once we get past that, as the sun rises and then on through midday, that's when the winds are starting to pick up. And again, we'll deal with some pretty gusty winds as we go throughout Wednesday. That, in addition to a return to some mild temperatures, is going to be the biggest story for Wednesday, not the precipitation. This is just one of 3 cold front passages that we're going to notice for this week. And you may be able to pick apart where we're dealing with those frontal passages just based off the temperature trend. We got our first one for Wednesday. Now, if you guess the second one is Friday, you are correct. And if you guess the third one is Sunday, you're correct. So those are our 3 days we're watching: Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, for a series of frontal passages and temperatures. While initially dropping some behind the cold front passage tomorrow, dropping Thursday, picking right back up out ahead of the second front on Friday, right back in the 60s. Then we're dropping back in the 50s Saturday. And then with that next front, we don't get that surge of warmth. It's just another secondary front coming in that's helping reinforce even colder air Sunday to Monday. The coldest air of the season likely arrives early next week, where high temperatures are struggling to even get out of the 30s Monday into Tuesday, and those overnight lows below freezing and likely even below 30 degrees next Tuesday. So be prepared for a series of, you could say, what I'd say is even cold days. Highs in the 30s. Those are some cold days, especially for this time of the year, arriving early next week. Already quite chilly Sunday with some rain returning, but certainly early next week is when we're going to notice a couple of cold days coming our way, with highs struggling to get in the 40s. So while dry air is an issue Wednesday, not going to be an issue Friday and Sunday. Friday, it'll be more later on in the day. So we'll likely start off with some dry conditions in the morning, and then notice a steady rain breaking out Friday afternoon and evening, continuing into Friday night. But notice by daybreak Saturday, the rain chances are going to start to drop before picking back up Sunday. And yes, looks occasional, and Sunday is likely for majority, if not all, of the day. So while Friday, it's afternoon, evening, or into Friday night, right? In the morning, Friday's likely dry. By Sunday, most, if not all, of the daytime, we are likely dealing with some occasional showers. So looking pretty wet for Friday afternoon, evening, as well as for the majority of Sunday, looking wet as well. Good evening, Austin. Today was warm, but that air still has that chill. My area is on alert with a whooping cough going around. Plus, did you hear UPS airplane? Yes, I heard about the accident there. Airplane, that looked horrendous. And yeah, I did. I just saw that occurring in Kentucky. And today was warm. The air still has a chill. And again, to Austin, tomorrow, the warmest day in 2 weeks. So we'll finally get back to a little less chill to the air for the first time in 2 weeks tomorrow. So I would say tomorrow afternoon, the first mild afternoon for us in a while. And again, we get not one, but 2 of those, Friday as well as for Wednesday. So Wednesday and Friday are 2 more mild afternoons coming our way. Joe, thanks for everything you do for us. Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate you tuning in as always. Hello there, Football Fever with Johnny A. Thank you for tuning in, joining us on YouTube this evening. I appreciate you tuning in. You are so very welcome for the kind words. Thank you so much there. Made my first YouTube video today. That's exciting. Cool to hear there. How exciting. And saying goodbye and go Red Devils. Football Fever Johnny A says, well, goodbye there, Johnny. Thank you for tuning in. Exciting. Making the first YouTube video. Very cool. Our rain chances, again, Friday, Sunday, going to be more of those real wet days, more impactful for outdoor activities. And that does, unfortunately, carry over into Friday night for our high school football games. Not avoiding it. We've really lucked out for a lot of these high school football games of the season, but unfortunately for this Friday, it just doesn't look to pan out. Rainfall amounts can be upwards of about 1/2 of an inch from Friday afternoon into Saturday morning. And I could see some little higher amounts in spots. I think it's possible that we can have some pockets of heavier rain, maybe a rumble of thunder. So I wouldn't be surprised if some locations can exceed 1/2 an inch, maybe get closer to an inch. But on a widespread scale, it's likely only upwards of about 1/2 of an inch of total rainfall coming our way. Maybe some of those lighter amounts closer to 1/4 of an inch. But we can have some pockets of heavier rain and with some rumbles of thunder. It is possible in the mix for the latter part of Friday as it breaks out in the afternoon, then continuing into the evening. So as we jump into our 9+1 day forecast, obviously the next round, like we discussed, of rain after Friday is going to be into Sunday. Now, at this point, again, dealing with some occasional showers, going to be a chilly rain on Sunday. There are likely some showers that continue Sunday night into Monday. And as temperatures are dropping off, this is when we've got a good chance for our first snowflakes of the season. Yes, into early next week. And Sunday night into Monday is when we'll likely see that transition from rain to snow. We do have some pretty warm ground temperatures leading into this. Temperatures 60s, 50s, still closer to 50 for a high Sunday. And we're also dealing with, while cold enough that I think the majority, if not all, the precipitation that falls Monday is in terms of snow, with some showers lingering. Temperatures for most of that period are likely above freezing. So we have, I think, multiple variables that can limit how much of that snow actually sticks or accumulates for us Sunday night going through Monday. And especially for our road conditions that, with the temperatures above freezing for a lot of this, that the road conditions and the impacts overall can be pretty minor, something to continue to monitor, right? It's too early to set anything in stone. I think it's more just an emphasis on the fact that this is our first, snowflakes of the season, right? Than anything that's going to be a major crippling winter storm or, snow coming our way. I don't think it's anything to worry about in that regard, but, we'll keep an eye on it. I think it's too early to say for certain that there can be no minor impact or accumulation. I just think that there's multiple variables that are hinder that snow from sticking, going to hinder those roads from getting real slick on us, but certainly something we'll keep a close eye on. It's just way too early yet to make any final calls, as we're still quite a far ways out into early next week, but something that we're going to continue to monitor. On average, we get our first snowflakes of the season later on this month, usually late November. So it's arriving a little bit early, but typically it is this month that we get our first snowflakes of the season. So we're on par in that regard, just a little bit early than what we typically get, which is later into November, but pretty much on par, right? We're in the same month. So not out of the ordinary by, not too far out of the ordinary to get this, more so into the early part of November. Nothing too crazy, right? Nothing too crazy. Kathy, good evening. Today was a beautiful day. Certainly was a pleasant day, Kathy. I think we got some nice weather coming our way again on Thursday and even Saturday. Not too bad, but especially for Thursday, I think it's going to be on the cooler side with respect to Wednesday, but there's winds much lighter, more sunshine, and we'll get blown around everywhere like we will likely tomorrow. It will feel warmer to us. That's a noticeable warm up Wednesday as well as Friday. Those highs in the 60s we haven't felt in 2 weeks. So it is something that it's going to feel warmer to us in the afternoon hours on tomorrow, on Wednesday. Even despite dealing with some windy conditions, the wind chill will have less of an effect when those highs are into the 60s. Now, even lower 50s, we still have a little chill to the air, especially with temperatures start below 50. Wind chills will become much more of an effect in the 40s and then lower. And that's where we've been for a lot of these afternoons. We've had some 50s, but for a lot of these afternoons, end of October, beginning of this month, it was quite a cool stretch where we had a lot of these highs not making it too far in 50s and still had that chill to the air. But I think we'll notice it. Even despite dealing with some windy conditions tomorrow, I think you'll notice that there's not as much of a chill to the air as what we've dealt with as of recent for tomorrow afternoon. The same story Friday. Outside of that, yep, we're getting back to a lot of what we've had as of recent Thursday, Saturday with highs back mid lower 50s. Again, winds do not look as breezy for Thursday with respect to Wednesday. Winds will pick back up probably Friday as well as Sunday into Monday. We'll have a breeze likely during that time period with the series of cold front passages, but windy Wednesday and then lighter winds present on Thursday. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Of course, stay tuned tonight for our election coverage, election day coverage. We'll bring you the latest on results coming up, News 9 at 10 on Fox 9 News 9 tonight at 11. And of course, I'll be right back here to bring you the latest on those gusty winds. Got the latest on those gusty winds for your Wednesday, the latest on that pretty soggy rain again to the end of the day Friday, as well as the latest on that cool down early next week. And of course, stay tuned for the next edition of Nate for the latest tomorrow evening as well. Appreciate it as always. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see all of you on the next edition of Nate at 8.